Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and in this video today we're going to be working on a Japanese larch that I got from Xavier Martinez over at the Bonsai Retreat. We're going to be giving it a little bit of bonsai care and a quick prune in order to take it to the next stage of its bonsai development so it can become a great bonsai. Okay, so just quickly before we start, it started to rain a little bit, so I'm gonna put this canopy out. That way the camera doesn't get wet. Thought it was gonna collapse for a second. Alright, so this is the wonderful tree that we're going to be working on in this video today. I acquired this tree last year whenever I visited Xavier over in his garden. We did some videos together, it was super fun. Xavier posted this over to me, it arrived. Here's a clip of when it arrived. Alright, so let's see what is inside here. And this is it. Okay, oh my goodness. So it looks like Xavier has put in some extra goodies. This is a trident maple. I'm gonna have to pot this up. He's got it in some sphagnum moss here. This looks like a Chinese elm. And this is the Japanese larch. And he seems to have packaged this really well. There's lots of bubble wrap to keep this secure. All right, look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? This came the whole way from the Bonsai Retreat. And now it is the following year, and as you can see, this tree has pushed out so much growth since then. When I got this tree, I didn't disturb the roots at all. I fed it with a high nitrogen fertilizer with an NPK value of 1266, and it's pushed out all of this wonderful growth. So today we're going to come in, do a little bit of work on this, push back the growth, and hopefully we'll get a second flush of growth this year. As right now, it is early summer, because if I were to just leave this as it is right now and let it grow and grow and grow, what will happen is the inside branches won't get any light, and then as a result the branches on the inside and all this nice dense compact growth that will die off, and you'll end up with this tree that's like really leggy. It's got growth all out here and nothing inside. So what I really want to do is open it up and allow light to the inner branches, and then we can get back budding. And now before we begin, the tools that we'll be using throughout this video today are some twig cutters, concave branch cutters, some bonsai tweezers, wire cutters, a nylon brush, and some gin pliers. And now if you're new to bonsai, by no means do you have to have all of these specialized bonsai tools. You know, with a pair of scissors, you could just as well get away with a pair of garden secateurs. You could use a toothbrush instead of this specialized nylon brush. Just whatever tools that you have at your disposal to get a particular job done. Although you do want to make sure that whatever tools that you are using are clean and sharp. Clean so we don't introduce or spread any bacterial or fungal infections between each of our trees, and sharp because a sharp blade on your tool will give you a much cleaner cut at a branch. And in horticulture, clean cuts heal so much faster and more efficiently than a blunt cut that was squashed by a dull blade. So starting off with this tree, we're going to do a little bit of weeding. I don't normally have grass in my bonsai pots. This must have come from Xavier's garden in some way. Maybe there was some grass seed or something that fell into here, but I'm just going to start by removing as much of this grass as I possibly can without disturbing the soil if I can. So, you know, if you want, you can come in with the tweezers, just pull the grass up by the root like that. And now the reason why we remove grass and weeds and stuff on top of our bonsai like this is because if it gets too much and the top layer of the soil becomes matted, you'll have drainage problems where the water isn't able to sufficiently penetrate through the soil. And also in really bad cases, if there's a lot of weeds, the weeds can actually disrupt the root system of your bonsai, and as a result the health of the tree can suffer. So you really want to keep on top of the weeds and grass and stuff that's on your trees, just to keep the drainage nice and flowing and ensure that your root system is nice and happy. Now that I've cleaned this top layer of soil here, I'm going to take the nylon brush and just scrub away the algae that's growing on the trunk here. A little bit up here too. And the reason I'm doing this is simply because if algae grows up the trunk and it stays there for any length of time, this area can stay too moist for too long, and as a result, it can actually rot the trunk of your tree. So if you see any algae, I like to stay on top of it All right, so I think I've successfully removed as much algae as I can here. Throughout the year, if I notice it coming back during the summer, I'm just gonna come in, give it a little scrub here and there, just to keep it maintained. Now, I am curious as to how the condition of these roots are. Are they good? Are they bad? I have no idea. So I just want to check, see what they're like. As I know here, this type of soil that this is in is like a mix of pumice and potting grit. Potting grit doesn't really have a good cation exchange capacity, and it doesn't hold water, and larches just happen to have a really high water mobility, meaning they take up water very quickly. If the soil isn't holding much water and it's a really hot day in the summer, there's a risk that this tree could dry out, or I'll have to just water it more often. So I may even want to replenish a little bit of the soil depending on what's going on in here. So let's just have a look. Okay, so it all comes out in one piece, which is good. From what I can see under here, really healthy root system. I think with the amount of pumice through here, Xavier did a really great job. I think is more than enough to hold lots of water for us until maybe next year when we come back and repot this tree. But I am just going to top up the top layer of soil just to freshen it up. So moving on to the top part of this tree, this is where we actually come in, give it a style, give it a shape, see what we're going to make. When it comes to working on a tree that had been previously worked on by someone else, there's a few considerations that I like to take before I come in and just do whatever I want to the tree. So first, like, did this person have a plan with the tree? Perhaps I'm going to carry on their plan, or did I discover my own plan and see, maybe do I bring this branch down here and reshape the major branches from the natural shape that they're at to something that I want instead? And my plan with this tree, you know, depending on the tree I work on, this could go one of two ways. Just personally for me, because this is a tree from Xavier, and I was looking at the style of this tree. You know the tree on Xavier's channel, the Japanese larch, exactly like this one, that's leaning to the side, the really famous one. The fact that this is from Xavier and it's got this lean, I absolutely want to give it the same character as the tree that Xavier has in his channel, where it's all leaning to the one side. Maybe I will have some on this side just to give it a little bit of balance, but I think I want the apex to be off center. You know, later I could come in, plant this, you know, vertically and give it like your classic bonsai shape, but I think with this one it'll be absolutely more interesting if I were to give it the character of the person that I got it from based on the trees they have. If you disagree with me, absolutely fine, but I just feel that I really want to show off the sentimentality with this one. The front is either here or here. This tree I think could have two fronts. Every bonsai that you work on will have a front or the preferred viewing angle. You see, on this side the roots aren't as interesting, but the branch structure and the line of the tree is a lot more visible here. But then on this side, the roots are more interesting, but the line of the tree is covered by branches and foliage, and there's a crossing branch halfway up that I really not the biggest fan of, that I prefer to be at the back. Maybe this tree will have two fronts. When working on bonsai, usually we prune from the base of the tree up to the apex, but I'm going to go a little unconventional with this one, simply because larches grow apically dominant, meaning they put all of their growth and most of their energy into the top part of the tree. And if you were to prune a larch completely evenly all over, there's a chance that the lower branches can sort of like suffer, die off sometimes, and that's not good. So I like to start with larches in particular. I like to start at the top, prune really heavily, then come back to the bottom and work my way to the apex that I started at. On the stems of the branches here, there's these little side shoots and also these little orange dots. This little dot here is a bud. So whenever you prune Japanese larch, you want to always prune back to one of these little buds, because later in the year this little bud will open up, push out into a new branch and become the leader of this branch, and that way this branch can continue growing. If you leave nothing, then it's unlikely that you'll get a side branch and it will just sort of stop there. So in that same fashion, whenever I'm pruning all of these branches here, I'm always leaving either a bud or an open bud to cut back to. That way the tree doesn't die off. Here there's like so many branches coming from the one spot, and as a max I like to only have like 2 coming from the one spot. If there's any more than that, 3, what tends to happen is you'll get a swelling in this area as all these 3 little branches will pull sap out in all them directions, and the main trunk will just swell up, and this is known as inverse taper. And as a bonsai, this is not desirable, because with a bonsai trunk you want it to go from thick at the base up to nice and thin, sort of gracefully. And if you get inverse taper and you know that graceful flow, and then you got a bump. This does not look pleasing. So any branches that's growing, 3 in the one spot, I'm gonna shorten them back to 2. So I'm gonna prune all of this growth here at the top. As you can see, there's just so much lengthy growth. This can all be pushed back. As you can see here in this area, this is like a fan, okay? And this is the end of a branch. So there's 2 here. I'm gonna remove the middle one. That way it bifurcates from 1 to 2. And then on these 2 branches, this one's a little long, so I'm just gonna shorten that down anyways. And then on these 2 bifurcations at the end of the branch, I'm gonna shorten them back to the most furthest back bud that I can see. And let me just double check. Always make sure there's a bud to here. So I would say that's that branch successfully pruned. And even the branch itself is quite long. If you wanted, you could even take this branch in further. Totally up to you. I'm gonna keep it at this length for now. Another branch here that goes from 1 to 3. I'm gonna take out the middle one and then shorten them back. This is another good example here. As you can see, this goes from 1 to 3. We're gonna just take out the middle one. And you only really want to take out the middle one in this case if you don't want this branch to keep sort of elongating and getting longer and thicker. The moment you take off the terminal end, the energy is then redirected to the side branches. But if you did want this branch to keep growing and getting longer and thickening further in, don't remove the terminal end, simply shorten the side ones and keep the other one long, and then it will continue thickening. You don't want to aimlessly do these techniques to every branch just because you heard someone say it online. You want to really think about what you're doing. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I want to take out the middle one? And just by constantly asking yourself why, you will learn so much more about bonsai. You'll gain a deeper understanding of what's happening with your trees, why you're doing things. And if you don't know why, ask someone, research it. And for me, that's like a lot of the fun part of bonsai, is just figuring out why we do things. So I think we have successfully reduced a lot of the top part of this tree. Now I'm going to go down and work on the bottom. And this is why I like to come to the bottom second, because I know for sure if this is my apex and I no longer want this tree to keep going up, I'm going to shorten every bud up here back to as far back as I possibly can. That way when it grows, the bifurcations and splits in the ends of the branches will be as compact as possible. However, with the branches lower down, I may want to keep some, let them grow longer, thicker. Maybe, if I wanted this to go more out this way, I'll prune it in such a way that it guides it to growing like that. So when you work on the pads, I find it's best practice to actually look down on it from the top. That way you can see the entire spread of the pad. And already looking at this, Xavier has done such a good job of setting this pad up to grow in a fan shape, which is absolutely a dream to work on for someone who's, taking a tree from someone else and working on it. I just think there's a little too much growing back here in towards the trunk. So I'm going to shorten that back first, because I know for sure all this is not going to be kept growing in towards the center of the planting. By having this back here as a branch, you know what, actually, I'm going to keep it. I was going to remove it because it felt like it made the tree look less mature, but if I push all this growth back, really compactify it to like maybe into here, I know it's going to remove a lot of the ramification, but if I really get it nice and tight, it's tricky. Okay, first going to remove the branches that's growing straight up. This branch back here is growing weird direction. I'm going to shorten that to here. That way this pad stays separate from this back section of the pad here, and maybe in the future we can develop things and more ramification to fill this space. I feel like I want to wire this. I think I do. I want to wire this branch over here like this. Oh, now look at that. Oh, I really like that. Okay, before I cut anything here, I'm going to wire it and position the branch where I'd like it to be. I'm going to be taking some 1.8mm or 13 gauge copper bonsai wire, and I'm simply going to start by just measuring it along where I want it to go on the branch, right up to here, and then I will anchor it to the branch above. And I may actually want to position this branch above, so I'm also going to give a little extra wire so that that branch can be wired. I'm taking the wire cutters, we can cut this here. So I'm going to start by just laying this in at the elbow of the branch like this, and then we're going to come around the branch, and I'm going to aim to have this wired at a 45-degree angle with every coil. So just coming around here, and then with the other end of the wire, I'm simply going to come up and around the trunk up to the other branch. We'll come back to this later. And then from here, you want to take a hand, hold the branch, that way it remains stable, and then with your other hand, take the wire, and we're just going to carefully come around the branch and wire it all the way to the end. And you want to make sure you don't crush any of the foliage in between on your way down the branch. If there is any foliage in a place you'd like to wire, it's better just to cut it off than crush it. As I get to the end of the branch, I'm going to do what's known as an open coil. And an open coil is essentially when you have the branch and you're putting the wire up along the branch, 45-degree angle. Also, if you do it on a chopstick like this, it's a really good way to practice your wiring. You're wiring the branch, you're wiring the branch. Now the open coil part comes whenever you don't actually rest the wire and push it against the branch, but instead you use your hand to sort of simulate as if the branch is wider than it would be. And we're coiling around like this. This is an open coil. Obviously this is a more dramatic version, but the idea is whenever you bend this and move the branch, this end piece, because it's delicate and thinner, the wire just guides it in the direction of growth in the future versus forcing these little delicate parts at the end to conform to the wire, which can snap it. And to aid in this open coil, if you simply don't have the dexterity for this little end piece, you can take the gin pliers, grab the end, and just gently, ever so carefully, make your open coil coming around the branch like this. That's okay there. Now I'm going to take a smaller gauge of wire. This is 1.2 millimeter or 17 gauge. And I'm going to wire these smaller branches in here. Really just take your time with this, there's no rush. Enjoy the process of bonsai. Again, wiring two branches together. So this one wire is wiring this branch and this branch. That way each branch is anchored to the other. This is known as the two branch principle. I basically wanted this branch to come more back this way like this. Also more down, because I want it to sort of come down and then perk up at the end. So now I'm beginning to realize as I adjust this, it's getting quite congested because there's just no space for branches to bend into. I'm just gonna bring this part down a little bit, that way the pad is flat. I think I do want to stop this pad here. Is a little higher, so this is a different pad, it's on a different plane. So to create that distinction, I'm going to pull it more back up this way, and then pull this one more down. So I think we need to differentiate these pads a little more. So I don't want to bend it too much, but enough that it is different. And by having all this leggy growth, it's not helping. So we can cut that right back, cut this right back, keep it nice and compact, keep this back, cut everything back. Okay, look at this, we're getting there. Here. Okay, there's a little dangly growth here. What is that? Oh, that's growing in towards everything, so I'm going to get rid of that completely. This is growing in towards everything, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to bring this down. I don't want to do too much to this bottom pad in one go. I'm going to just let it grow and develop over the next year. Maybe I will take this piece back a little too, because there's a lot of long growth on this that I just don't need. I feel like I could remove so much more. I could even remove maybe this back branch up here at some point. But for now, I'm going to keep it, let this pad develop, see how it does over the next year. I think the main thing is done where I've differentiated it between here and here as two different planes. Deliberation. So I'm like thinking of removing like an entire major branch of the tree, which has probably taken a long time to grow, simply because I feel like it's a competing trunk line, which is a trunk line that is similar thickness to the trunk of the tree, in which it makes the tree look less mature. And okay, maybe I shouldn't touch my face because the oils off this tree can give you contact dermatitis, so be careful if you're working on Japanese larch, wear gloves. But this is the branch in question, this big front thick one. I could make it a deadwood feature also. Oh, we could make a deadwood feature. Perhaps someone in the comments can let me know, like, does this look too straight? And maybe it works with the overall design of the tree, but I'm just thinking like this is, if I want to take this tree to the next level, having this, maybe I could wire it down also and create a pad like this. But I feel like in relation to the trunk, by this stage, surely yes, the bottom branch makes sense being this thickness, but you want it to get thinner and thinner and thinner as it reaches the apex. And in this case, this is the same thickness as this, which I could print all this off and have this as the branch here, so it's a lot more delicate. I could deadwood feature, you know, this, maybe this part. I'm going to start by just removing and thinning out the pads as I would normally do. Alright, I feel like this tree absolutely needs this branch. If I get rid of this, we have kind of made it absolutely one-sided, where we do need something on this side. So I'm not going to remove this branch, but it is good to bounce ideas around and see what you think will work. This branch back here, however, I feel like is a problem, because if we turn this around, right, first of all, it's very close to this pad, and this top part of the tree here. I want some negative space between here and this top part that I'll eventually bring down. And also the main reason is it's growing at a strange angle from the trunk. You see it's growing, it's almost crossing over, which I feel is strange. And if this branch is here, you want negative space in here. I'm first gonna shorten this to make it easier. I could have left this as a deadwood feature, but I just simply don't like the way it crosses, and even a deadwood feature crossing in my eyes would disrupt the flow that I want to create in the tree. So I'm just going to come in, bite off these little parts here. All right, so now I'm just going to cover this area with a little bit of cut putty. I'm just taking literally the smallest amount of cut putty because I know this will spread really well. Making sure your finger is wet, that way the cut putty doesn't stick to you. Pushing it on and just smearing it on the wound like this. That's literally all it needs. And we apply cut putty like this simply because it prevents moisture being lost from your bonsai. Especially during the growing season, this is quite important. And also it prevents moisture and any bacterial or fungal things getting into your tree. And this particular cut putty is antifungal, and it will also help encourage healing. And on that note of cut putty, there is a new flavor available on there's a new color of cut putty available on my store at notionbonsai.com. I now have 3 colors. I've got this nice gray color for like grayish colored barks, a brown, obviously for brown colored barks, and a green, this is the new one, for Japanese maple. So if you want your cut putty to blend in a little bit more with your maple, I got the green one. Cosmetically, they're all completely identical. So if you have a gray one and you're working on something like a maple, you don't actually have to have the green one. All 3 of them will do the same job on any tree. The only difference is the color. If you guys have any suggestions for me of different colors, again, of cut putties or any products you want to see in my store, let me know down in the comments. I'd absolutely love to hear them. I love making things that will just improve your bonsai experience. I've made a decision. I think I can agree halfway in the sense that this branch is absolutely too straight, but bending this branch will make it look like it's unnatural. It will not, no larch really in nature grows. You know, it does grow like that if there'd be like a snow load, but if this thickness and this proportion of the tree, to me, my brain is like, that looks weird, Adam. So what I'm going to do is simply cut it here. No, wait, I'm not going to cut it. Will I cut it? This is deliberation. I'm deliberating too much. Cut it, okay? And now we have this nice emergence from the trunk, but it doesn't end up too straight and too thick. We're going to taper this branch from this point into this nice finer one. And I think whenever we think of the triangular shape in bonsai, it'll go like this. Apex will be here off center from the base, and I think it works. I should also mention that if you're doing wiring, the best time to wire Japanese larch is actually late winter, early spring, before the tree actually pushes out any growth, because that way there isn't any foliage getting in the way. I just left it a little late this year, so I have to be a little bit more gentle working around the foliage. Now there's a big problem branch I'd like to remove. As you can see, this one here, it does fill this space, but it is growing into the center of the planting. So as you can see here, it's a nice branch. It splits nicely. I could perhaps wire it this way, but I just feel like even then there's still too much going on. So I'm gonna open up this part of the tree just by removing this branch. Let me just shorten it first and see. So if we go here, I still feel like it's ruining the flow of this graceful sort of coming out that I want in this tree. So the whole thing is going. And I'm just going to reposition some of these branches. I'd like this to be a little more flat on the top. Now when it comes to this very top branch and leader of the tree, there's a few problems that I'm noticing. It is without a doubt a competing trunk line. Even with this branch and this branch, they're the same thickness more or less. I could come in, deadwood this entire branch and have this as like a gnarled feature of the tree. If I were to do that, it wouldn't make sense having this over here, and I would have to then tilt the tree so that there's a little more balance in what's going on. I may do this. Another option is to just come in, wire all these apex branches downward and create a flat top. That is another option. There's no right or wrong answers here. It's just whatever you think looks best. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this extremely long straight piece. I could maybe remove it down to here, but it's always like, which one is the apex of the tree? And it's really difficult to decide. But it always leaves me back to the question of, you know, which one is the apex? Is it this one? Is it this one? Another option is to deadwood this branch and have this continue as the apex of the tree. Let me just take this bonsai pot and tilt this tree up like this. Now, does that look good? I quite like how that's up like that. If I were to do this, I would have to bring these pads more level, but I do feel like I like the way this is going straight up. And if I were to do this, I could keep this as the apex, because then this branch being this straight and with this taper makes sense. And then I could deadwood this one maybe. Or if I were to tilt it even more. Okay, so after a lot of deliberation, I've decided what I want to do with the top of this tree. I know these branches are competing trunk line branches, and this is thicker than this, but I just feel like for now, I want to keep both of these, and I want to develop this into a side branch pad. Pull this perhaps down here like this, and have this as the leader of the tree. I just feel that this tapers nicely, and then in the future, eventually, I may come back and deadwood this section, depending on how all of this develops up here. So I'm going to anchor this wire onto this part of the tree, and then with this I'm going to come up around here, right up to the top piece, and I can pull this forward just like this. And then with this side branch, I'm going to just loop the wire through it, pull it down like this. So this is now a side branch. The bark is tearing here just a little bit, so I'm going to take some of the cut putty and just cover this entire area. That will just encourage that to heal back over. This is growing straight up. I don't want that. This is going to become another competing trunk line because these are both the same thickness. So just to stop any of these problems, we're going to cut it right here. And then this can be the apex. Or even, what if we take this off? This. And then I'll turn this into the apex. I like this a lot more. It's better taper than this is a side branch. I am going to just change the planting angle so that it sits in the pot correctly. All I have done is just loosen up the old soil off of this tree. I'm not going to be cutting any roots because of the time of year. Ideally, you would do this again or in early spring. However, I know this tree is so energy positive and healthy that it will absolutely handle this kind of work. And I know I said at the beginning of this video that I was going to go with the leaning style, but as I worked on this tree and discovered more things about it, finding the line going straight up like that I feel is a lot more pleasing, and having the apex go off center is very difficult when you have a competing trunk line branch like this. I just feel like going with this may be the best option for now. Who knows in the future when this branch develops and grows more side branches and gets taller, maybe this will become redundant and we can then go back to the lean style. This is another thing I really love about bonsai. They're always changing, evolving. The style that you've chosen might not always last forever. You might always find something better. And of course, if you guys have any ideas for this tree, what you think would look best, let me know in the comments. I'm always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. So I'm just working out all these air gaps. There is some fine, delicate roots, and they come from these thicker ones that come and flow down into the soil. And if I were to leave this as it is, these little roots will then begin to dry out from being exposed to the sun and the wind, and they will die off. But what I really want to keep happening is these roots thicken just as much as these ones up here, and stay that thickness as it flows down into the soil. So what I'm going to do is take this stuff. This is known as keto. It's like a very pliable clay substance that is really handy for putting on the top of the surface of roots like this. But I put all this here. This will keep all these roots nice and moist for me, and they can continue thickening, and I don't really have to worry about them drying out. And from here, I'm really happy with that. And there you guys have it. On that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like on this video. It really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Let me know what you thought of this video and working on this tree down in the comments. I really love to hear from you. Also, big shout out to Xavier over at the Bonsai Retreat. He's where I got the tree for this video today. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description of this video. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. Or if you would like to become a channel member, hit the join button. That way you will get early access to new videos before they go out to everyone else. And you'll get access to membership posts. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.